Good afternoon, Senior One. You are most welcome for today's lesson, which I'm going to record. Last week, we looked at how we can separate solids which are soluble in water, and we said we can also use simple distillation, which when we want to retain both the solute and the solvent. So today, let us look at how we can separate miscible liquids. What are miscible liquids? Separation of miscible liquids, that's what we are going to look at. Miscible liquids, we are defining them as liquids that can be mixed together in all proportions, forming a uniform layer. Miscible liquids are liquids which can be mixed together in all proportions, forming a uniform layer. In all proportions, I mean that even if one liquid is more than the other, they will still form one uniform layer. Even if you get one liquid being more than the other, still you will form a uniform layer. A uniform layer means one layer. They are liquids which when you mix them, they form two layers. They separate from each other. And they are liquids which when you mix, they mix completely, forming a uniform layer. Those liquids, we call them miscible liquids. The uniform mixtures of two or more liquids form a homogeneous mixture. So when it is a uniform mixture, we can also call it a homogeneous mixture. And examples of these liquids, we have ethanol and water. This is the best example of miscible liquids. So whenever we ask for one example, give us one: ethanol and water. Ethanol is an alcohol, and it is almost the same as this water you see people drinking. It is ethanol. So that means all alcohols are miscible with water. So the best example of miscible liquids is ethanol and water. That is the best example of miscible liquids. Then we have propanol and water. Ethanol and water is there. Then ethanol and propanol, all those are alcohols. Then water and ink, all those are alcohols. The homogeneous mixtures or uniform mixtures can be separated by simple distillation. So these mixtures can also be separated by simple distillation, but that is only when the boiling points are far apart from each other. We have liquids which mix together to form a uniform mixture, but their boiling points are far apart, or they are very different. Or one liquid has a very high boiling point compared to the other. There we can use simple distillation. But once the liquids have close boiling points, when the boiling points are different but they are narrow, when the liquids have close boiling points, there we use fractional distillation. And we shall see the difference between fractional distillation and simple distillation. A good example of liquids which are separated by fractional distillation, we have ethanol and water. Their boiling points are near each other, whereby the boiling point of ethanol is 78 degrees centigrade and the boiling point of water is 100 degrees centigrade. So what is the procedure? If we want to separate a mixture of ink and water, these ones have very far deep, their boiling points are far apart from each other. So we pour a mixture of ink and water in a filter flask, and the delivery cube to the side arm. This is the delivery cube we are talking about, and the rubber band carrying thermometer. This is the rubber band carrying the thermometer or the stopper as shown in the diagram. Then when we heat, like we saw in simple distillation, the water vapor will evaporate off and it will be collected and cooled by this cold water as pure water there. That one is not common. The common one is what we are going to see. The common one is here for fractional distillation. This is very, very common for fractional distillation here, where we start from NB. NB, we are saying do not continue the heat until all the liquid has been transferred from the flask. Now, when the thermometer shows a constant reading, when the temperature is no longer increasing nor decreasing, that means you have reached the boiling point. So that's where you stop heating. That is what this statement means. Do not continue to heat until the liquid has been transferred from the flask to the test tube. Stop heating shortly when the temperature remains steady. So that's what we mean. When the temperature is no longer changing, neither increasing nor decreasing, it means you have reached the boiling point. So you stop there. Now I want to take you to fractional distillation, and you see the difference between fractional distillation and simple distillation. I've already told you that for fractional distillation, we use it when the liquids are miscible. When the liquids are miscible, that means they mix in each other to form a uniform layer, but they have different boiling points. But those boiling points are close and near each other. We use fractional distillation. So we are defining fractional distillation as this is the process of separating two liquids by using differences in boiling point. This is the criteria for using fractional distillation. We usually ask that question. Give a reason for using fractional distillation. The answer is the liquids have different boiling points. This is the process of separating two liquids by using their difference in boiling points. So when liquids have different boiling points, we use fractional distillation. Liquids to be separated by this method must have different boiling points. I've been talking about that. Must have different boiling points. This method can be used to separate a mixture of ethanol and water. So I want to repeat this. The best method for separating a mixture of ethanol and water is fractional distillation, not simple distillation. Fractional distillation gives pure ethanol. Pure ethanol. That's why in Uganda we have what we call crude warrage. There is this one which is sold in jerry cans, and that one is cheap. But we have this one which is sold in when it is packed like Uganda warrage. That one is expensive. And the difference is the other one is done by fractional distillation, the Uganda warrage, and the other in jerry can, that crude one, is done by simple distillation. So ethanol and water is separated by fractional distillation, and the reason is because ethanol and water have different boiling points. Yes, this method is also used to separate a mixture of gases like air, which contains majorly nitrogen and oxygen. So the gases are first liquefied or they are made to become liquid, and then they are also separated by fractional distillation. This method is also used to separate a mixture of petroleum. It is used in petroleum refinery, like to separate crude oil. That's where they form petrol and diesel. So a mixture of petrol and diesel is separated by fractional distillation. Petrol and diesel, kerosene, they are all separated by fractional distillation. What is in fractional distillation? In fractional distillation, we have a fractionating column, and a fractionating column is the one that starts from here up to here. This fractionating column is not in simple distillation, it is only in fractional distillation. So that's the difference, the fractionating column. Otherwise, the Liebig condenser, we saw it also in simple distillation to cool the vapor. Now here, the liquid, we have a mixture of two liquids, but which is ethanol and water. The one that has a lower boiling point is the one whose vapor comes off fast, and is the one that is collected as a distillate. I already told you that water has a boiling point of 100 degrees centigrade, but ethanol has a boiling point of 78 degrees centigrade. This is ethanol. So meaning when you heat, the ethanol vapor is the one that comes out first, and it is the one that is collected in this flask as the distillate. So take note of that. Then we have glass beads. The role of these glass beads is to distribute the ethanol vapor, the vapor that is coming out here, to distribute it evenly, or to increase on the surface area for the reaction. So let's look at the procedure. Place a mixture of ethanol and water in the distillation flask. You can see that as shown above. Then you have to heat. I've told you that since ethanol has a lower boiling point, it will come out fast. It will boil fast, so its vapor will be collected here. And that means water which has a higher boiling point will remain in the distillation flask. So we are saying here, heat the mixture until when it begins to boil. Now when it begins to boil, ethanol having a lower boiling point boils fast. I have already told you that, leaving water in the distillation flask. The temperature remains constant for a while as ethanol vapor rises up in the fractionating column, and this is condensed. The ethanol vapor, I told you, is condensed by the Liebig condenser. The role of the Liebig condenser, because it has water, cold water in. That cold water is the one that cools the hot ethanol vapor. Yes, is condensed by the Liebig condenser, forming a colorless liquid, a colorless distillate. So the one that is collected in the other flask is the distillate, and it is ethanol. And what remains in the distillation flask is water, which has a higher boiling point. NB, we are saying water vapor may also try to escape, but it cannot go up the fractionating column as it condenses and falls back into the distillation flask. The beads in the fractionating column, the glass beads I told you, increase the surface area for the condensation of the rising vapor. So that is the role of the glass beads. When temperature rises slightly above the boiling point of ethanol, remove the distillate, and this will be pure ethanol. The distillate will be pure ethanol, and the water remains in the distillation flask. I told you that, and may be collected as a second distillate if heating continued up to 100 degrees centigrade. And B, bumping stones broken a mixture ethanol to prevent violent boiling of the mixture. So the bumping stones are also in the distillation flask to prevent violent boiling of the mixture. Let's look at applications of fractional distillation. It is used in brewing industry to produce quality drinks such as beer and ethanol. I have already told you whiskey, that is all ethanol, warrage, distilled warrage. All that is done by fractional distillation. It is used in refining industry to separate components of crude oil. I told you ethanol, petrol, and diesel. All those are separated by fractional distillation. It is used in large-scale manufacture of oxygen, liquid air, fractional distilled. I told you air contains majorly nitrogen and oxygen. So they are liquefied or made liquid, and then they are separated by fractional distillation. And in that case, you can get oxygen. So that's how oxygen is prepared on a large scale. So let me stop there. Then you go through the notes, read and understand. Then on Friday, I will give you assignment on what I have taken you through.